Hi, I'm Diana, the artist behind My Doodles. Welcome to my channel. Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to draw something really fun for Valentine's Day. I thought it might be a fun little project to draw like a conversation heart, and I'm going to draw it in a large size that can be used for a card or for prints, and you can reduce the size if you would like to make it into something like stickers. So I've made a document in just the screen size of my iPad, and I'm going to go ahead and sketch in my heart. I like to make it kind of like 3D, like a really thick heart that's like laying on a surface, and I'm going to put some words on it like those conversation heart candies. So I want it to be like something like this. Maybe like a little bit of like a shadow and some like crumbly things. And then we'll shade in the side here and then write like a cute little message. So something like that. The perspective is not perfect on this, and that's okay. We're going to use some tools in Procreate to help us with the perspective and the words and make it look like it's like going into the distance and things like that. So don't worry too much if your drawing's not looking perfectly proportioned and whatever. It's just kind of like to get your idea down. So I'm going to keep that as my first layer and just kind of turn it down a little bit, just so I have kind of like a little guide. I'm using the brush called Soft Chalk. It's brush number 16 in this Rough and Tough brush bundle. It's available in my Etsy shop. You can use whatever brush you prefer. I really like this one. I use it for most of my artwork. It's my go-to brush. So I'm going to use that to fill in my heart. So I'm just going to kind of draw like the outline here. And again, don't worry if the perspective's a little bit distorted or whatever. And I want to fill it in, but also just leave like some white space. I like how this brush has a lot of texture to it and looks like really chalky or like a pastel or something, and it just draws really smooth. It quickly became one of my favorite go-tos. And I want the edge to be kind of textured too. I don't necessarily want it to be like a solid edge. So something like that. So I have my heart. I want to kind of like make it look like it's laying a little more flat. So I'm going to select the layer, press this arrow and push distort down here. And this allows you to mess around with your picture there, and you can make it look like it's more three-dimensional. So I want it to be like laying on a table. So if you imagine lines like going into the distance, you can alter these proportions here with these guidelines on the side. You can grab all these nodes to kind of adjust it a little. So I'm just going to do like that. Make sure my top and bottom is like parallel with my canvas, and kind of just like take these sides out a little. You can kind of mess around with this till you get something you're happy with. This side is a little rounded. Kind of push that in a little. There's a warp tool too that you can kind of manipulate your designs with as well. So I think that might work. Before I get out of here, I'm just going to go back to uniform, because the next time I need that tool, I probably don't want distort or warp. And when those are turned on, it's kind of annoying. Okay, so that is like my top of the heart that I'm going to work with. And a layer underneath, I'm going to draw the sides. You can actually duplicate your top and then use that as your guide. Drop it straight down, turn on magnetics. So you slide it down with the magnetics turned on. So I want to change the color just because it's difficult to see which is the top and which is the bottom. So I am making a new layer on top of my bottom of the heart, dropping in some color and just clipping it down like that. Okay, I like to do it that way because it's just easy for me to quickly recolor it. There are recoloring options, but for me that's what works the best. And then I can, if I don't like that pink or I want it to be slightly different, I can just drop the color into this layer rather than having to use the recolor tool. Just do what works for you. So that looks pretty good. And then I can kind of adjust my back layer to see like how thick I want to make my heart. I do want it pretty thick, so I guess something like that. And now we need to connect the top to the bottom. I want to connect them with lines to show like depth. So I'm just going to take it straight up from one point to the next, like this. And then you have to imagine your heart is underneath, so you need to connect this down also. A little bit would be showing. So we could leave it a little bit less opaque so you can see what you're doing. And then I'll draw it like that. We can turn that back up. And then one more here, just to connect it all together so it becomes a 3D object. So I think that looks pretty cute. I really like that. I am going to clip down that light pink to my bottom layer because I like it and I would like to save it. I just look for any like weird white gaps. And now we'll add a little bit of shading and some words to the top. So for my shading, I like to make a new layer on top of my bottom part here. I don't like to shade directly on. If you want to, you certainly can. You can just alpha lock your layer by taking 2 fingers and swiping to the right. It'll alpha lock it so that you could just grab a shading brush and it'll only go in the bounds of your layer. I don't like to work directly on my layer. I like to be able to undo things and adjust things, but if you want to work in fewer layers, or if you don't mind working in a destructive fashion, then you can certainly just draw directly on your layer. I'm going to use a layer on top and make it a clipping mask. So I'll choose clipping mask from that menu. And I want it to kind of look like really textured and kind of like speckly. So I'm going to go in here and grab a speckly brush. I have one I like that's in my shaders. It's in my Artbox shaders. This is also a bundle that's available on Etsy. It comes with some fun color changing brushes, some liner brushes, and then these shaders. I'll put a link in the description if you'd like to use the same one. So I'm going to grab this one called Grit and go back with my original darker pink color. Just add a little bit of shading here. And you can see it layers on, so you can just do as many passes as you want to get at the darkness that you like. And I want mine to look like super textured and kind of gritty. And then a shadow underneath would be nice. So let's put a layer all the way underneath and grab like a darker and kind of more desaturated hue. And I think I'll stick with that gritty brush and just see how that looks and make like a little shadow here. Okay, so I just got like this real gritty surface, and then I think I'll make one more layer underneath with just like a really light wash of color, like kind of like the table or whatever this candy is laying upon. So I'll grab like a light gray, be something like that. I'm going to go back to my soft chalk brush. There we go, make it really big. I'll probably make it into stickers also without this shading in the background and just use my actual little candy heart. Okay, I like that. And now we need to put some words on the top. I like to keep my layers organized. I'm going to group this entire heart up into its own layer. Maybe get that shading out of the group and just have the actual heart in one group there, and then the shading below it, and then the like the table or the background or whatever. I just want to adjust my shading a little bit here. Looks like a bit much. There we go. Okay. So I want to put some words on the top. I'm going to go at the very top, make a new layer, and I think I'll use the same color that I used for the shading. So it's here in my history. I'll just grab that. And for this, I think I'll go ahead with this monoline brush. It's free with the Procreate app in the calligraphy section of the brush library. And I'm gonna just write a little message. I'm gonna write it normally. You could write it in perspective if you wish, but I'm just gonna go ahead and just write it straight and then use my distort tool to make it look like it's the right perspective. I like to use grid lines to keep my words straight. Otherwise it's extremely difficult for me to write in a straight line. So I'll use my grid there. And it doesn't matter what size I make my words. It's actually better to make it much bigger than you are going to use so that it doesn't get like blurry as you resize things. You can't make it bigger, you can always make it smaller. So let's just write, you are cute. I'm going to duplicate it because I'd like to save my original since I do have other ideas for this project. And grab my duplicate and go ahead and work with that one to distort it and stuff. So I have my layer selected, grab this arrow up here, press distort, and you don't need like snapping and magnetics turned on in this case. I don't know if it snaps when you're distorting things, but as you're scooching things around, definitely will, and I don't really need that turned on. To ensure that both of these lines stay parallel, you can just grab this middle node. Last time I grabbed an edge, and then it starts like distorting this side while this side is staying perfectly vertical. So I should have grabbed the middle, and that makes both of them move as a pair. So you could do that to get it to the right angle. Same angle that your heart is laying at. But I still want it to be like legible, so I don't want to distort it too much. Maybe just like rotate it a little so it looks right. I think I'll leave it like that, and then I need to make it smaller. So I'll go back over here to uniform, and now this is going to just shrink the whole thing uniformly. It won't distort or bend one side while the other one stays the same or anything like that. It's just going to shrink the whole thing. So maybe like that size, and don't deselect it till you are sure of your size because you can't make it bigger again. It'll be all blurry. So I think that looks good. So I'll go with that. And that's really cute. I like that. If you want to add a little more, you could, you know how these are stamped? Well, at least I think they are. Maybe it's printed on, but I wouldn't mind to look like it's like stamped in. So I'd like to add a little more perspective on top of this. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it. So now I have a layer in between that is a little bit darker than the shade I wrote my words in. And I'm going to clip that down to my bottom layer. And then just, if I like the color, looks good, just merge it down. And I'm going to offset it just slightly so it looks like a shadow or like this is stamped down in. So select it, and then you can just tap your pen on the screen and it'll nudge it like 1 pixel at a time. So I'm just going to do that until it looks the way I want it to. Okay, and I want it to kind of look like it's like embossed or like stamped down in. So I duplicated my layer again and made it a lighter layer. So I have one that's like the shadow and then one that's the light. Then it looks like there's like a highlight and a shadow. So I kind of like it like that. And I think that looks pretty cute. And I think I'll add some like little crumbs, like this little like chalky candy kind of crumbled off a little bit. I'll make a new layer at the very top and then just make some little like tidbits here and there that are chipped off of the candy. I'm going to use the dry chalk brush again and just make like little bits. Okay, just a little bit goes a long way. And then duplicate it, give it a slight little shadow. So I'm just going to grab a darker color, put it in a layer over top, clip it down, and that's on the duplicate. And then just add a little blur. So if you go to this magic wand and choose Gaussian blur, then you can just slide it just a tiny bit. I like to do like 1% or even less. Let's see how that looks. And then just nudge it down. You can just nudge it by tapping on the screen to nudge it down just like a few pixels. And then gives it like a teeny tiny little shadow for these little crumbs. But this is our cute little conversation heart. And I'm gonna make a bunch more of these and turn it into a sticker sheet like this and just make them say like different cute phrases. If you put in the comments below which phrases you put on yours or which phrases I should add, I'll take a look at the comments and I'll reply to you all. You could even add a few little highlight lines here and there, just along like the very edge. Just a really thin line, and a little bit goes a long way with these highlights. Just to give it like a little bit more depth. This is obviously a really loose drawing of a candy heart. It's not super realistic or anything, but just for fun. If you make this project, I'd love to see what you created. So if you post your work on Instagram, be sure to tag me at MyMcDoodles and hashtag MyMcDoodles so I can find your work. I try to share as many other artists' work in my stories as I can, and I would love to share yours. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe before you go so you don't miss out on the next fun tutorial. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.